What kind of heterosexual bullshit is this? I swear to God, like, this book is basically straight culture in a nutshell, okay? And as a straight person, this made me extremely ashamed to be straight. Like, it's already fucking embarrassing that I have to deal with men and that I am attracted to them, but this makes me even more ashamed. Hi, today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in June, and for the month of June, I read a pretty good variety of books, especially when it came to ratings. I ended up rating books from all over the place, ranging from 1 star to 5 stars. I also participated in the Biblio Games, which is a readathon that is hosted by Mayana from Little Wolf Reads. This round is a superhero-themed round where everyone is split into teams like superheroes, villains, sidekicks, and anti-heroes. I joined the villains team because the prompts for that team just happened to match the TBR that I had already. I don't know what that says about me, but that's the team that I ended up in. For each page that you read, you gain a point for your team, and then if you complete a specific challenge, that gains you 50 points as well. So I'll talk about those challenges as we go along, but the first book that I read for June is Severance by Ling Ma. This actually rolled over from the Asian readathon last month, but I didn't finish it until the month of June. So this is a literary novel that is a post-apocalyptic world where people have been infected by something called the Shen fever, and they aren't violent zombies necessarily. They are more so zombies in the sense where they are doing the same pattern of behavior over and over again to the point where they starve themselves to death, or they don't take care of themselves or shower or whatever. And this is not very different from how humans operate normally, because we already act like zombies when we constantly scroll through our phones, and every day we go to work and then go back home and then scroll through our phones again. So it's obviously commentary that there's not much difference between the zombies and ourselves. And the main character here is an office worker who, out of the entirety of New York City, has not been infected. While the rest of New York City is fucking wasted, she goes ahead and comes into the office every single day and does work like a nice, dutiful worker that she is, because she's like, dude, let's get this fucking promotion. She actually likes the schedule and the routine that work provides for her, so she's like, might as well get some bread while I'm at it. If you are a millennial who is a working adult, I think that you will find the situation to be very relatable, because that was certainly the case for me. I got into one of my many bouts of depression after I graduated college and started working full time. I started feeling depressed at the monotony and the banality of the everyday routine of just going to work and then going home, and I was like, fuck, is this it? You just fucking work every day until you die? Evidently, that's adulthood. Even a year or two ago, I was constantly in the office until midnight because I wanted to so badly prove that I was worthy of a promotion. Work was all there was to my life because I wanted that schedule and that routine to keep my shit in order. And I think that's how we've been socialized to behave as well. I even remember that when I was in high school, we had these rumors about a school shooting. So half the school didn't even attend. They used it as an excuse to play hooky. But for me, I went ahead and attended school anyway that day because I knew that we would have had homework to make up. That just says a lot of our society in general, and therefore I feel like it is relevant. That being said, I still rated this book 3 stars because even though I do like the themes, I felt very lukewarm about the book overall. I realize it's because I don't think that the book is providing anything new. People are obsessed with technology and consumerism and their phones, and we act like zombies because in the end, the real monsters are ourselves. Yeah, big fucking deal. We been knew this. I don't feel bad about criticizing that this book could have been deeper because it's a literary novel, and that's the whole point of the genre. It tries to be deep so that you can read it and feel like a pretentious person. It's not providing anything new to what we've already known, that capitalism is bad and that technology is bad, and we are so obsessed with technology that we'll submit to the monotony of our everyday lives. I wish there was more to it. There could have been a lot more potential for incorporating the immigrant experience because the main character is the daughter of immigrant parents. Shen fever is also something that originated in China, so the country has blocked off other immigrants from coming in. This was a really interesting theme because the main character is kind of in a position where she doesn't feel like she really belongs anywhere, but it was only mentioned like 1 or 2 times. I think there is this interesting dynamic when you are an immigrant or the child of an immigrant parent where you don't feel particularly attached to a specific place. And I think that there would have been a really interesting connection to make from there with Shen Fever in this hypothetical zombie post-apocalyptic world, but there was not. And in the end, it was very lukewarm. Therefore, I rated it 3 stars. The next book that I read is Radio Silence. This is the book that was chosen for PAPERCUT Book Club on Kat's live show because it is her favorite book of all time. I also used this book to fulfill the challenge of buddy reading with another member on the Villains team, so I read it with Debbie from Debbie's Library. And this is basically a contemporary YA that revolves around teenagers who are dealing with the transition from high school to college and dealing with the academic pressure of basing so much of their worth and so much of their personhood onto grades. They have this side hobby where they have a podcast. One of them does like a Night Vale like podcast, and then the other draws artwork for it. And this is a hobby that's kind of like escapism for them, but it's a way for them to express themselves, and it's what they are truly passionate about. But that is obviously not as considered important as what really matters, which is grades and getting a job or whatever. I gave this book 4 stars. I do think that I might be biased because Kat loves it so much, and I couldn't help but project so much of Kat onto this book. I was very much reminded of Kat while reading it because it gave me a glimpse of what she was dealing with when she was in school as well, and I think that kind of personal touch made me appreciate the book even more. But I do think, objectively speaking, this book was well done. Writing teenagers and internet culture is something that is very easy to get wrong and make it extremely cringy, but I was pleasantly surprised that this book pulled it off really well, and it didn't feel forced at all. I also really enjoyed the purely platonic relationship between the 2 main characters. It was very refreshing to see, and it was very genuine, and overall the book just has a lot of heart to it between the relationships and between the inner turmoil that the characters face. I think it comes from a very real place, and that helps make the book more impactful. And I think that despite me usually not liking contemporary YA, this is how I was still able to enjoy it. There were even various parts throughout the book that had a lot of tension or conflicts, and it made me genuinely anxious or worried. And I think that's really good to have that kind of impact on a reader, and for you to like, you know, kind of be sweating a little bit and be like, oh shit, I can't believe this happened. It's interesting for me to read this book in particular because even though my teenage experience was not really the same, I think I'm kind of experiencing the adult version of this, except instead of school pressure, it is more so career pressure, where I felt like I had these expectations for my career to go a certain way and to go a certain path, not because I necessarily wanted to do it, but because I felt like I should do it. Do I actually want to do this, or do I just feel like I should do this because of money or because of status or whatever? And it's interesting that the characters dabble in the internet as their side hobby, because obviously that is what I am currently doing right now. I dabbled into being a YouTuber, and now it's become this bigger thing. Despite me not being a teenager anymore, the fact that I can still relate to this in those aspects makes the themes universal. I rated it 4 stars. The reason why I did not rate this book 5 stars is just because I did not think that the writing was spectacular. I felt like the writing style was very basic, and I think that you could argue that it was like this just so that it can convey a realistic teenage experience. But I think my personal preference is that I would like to have a little bit more flourish in the writing. The story and the content is good, but there's nothing about the writing that's like, wow, this was such an amazing book, as opposed to, wow, this is an amazing story. I hope that makes sense, but basically, I'm just trying to justify why I don't really like simplistic writing. I want a little bit more flourish with it. And I do think that if there was a little bit more flourish and bedazzle with the writing, that would have made the emotional beats of the story more impactful as well. So then you don't have to necessarily rely on relating to the characters. You can still be touched by the story from better writing. I also think that the ending was kind of rushed and a little bit too neatly tied up for my taste, which is weird because leading up to that, it felt very realistic up till that point. But I talk about more in details of all of those things in the live show with Kat and Jordan. The next book that I read is Defy the Fates by Claudia Gray. This was given to me by Dom Nguyen because he knew that the series is actually one of my favorites. This is something that not a lot of people know because the books are not really popular. However, I particularly really loved the first two books of the trilogy because the main couple in the book is the best portrayal of a couple that I've seen in fiction so far because they communicate really well. They are very supportive of each other. They listen to each other. They actually talk through their problems. It is a lot of fluff that's not problematic, and they actually are mature and can handle shit on their own. And I have nothing but good things to say about this couple. That being said, the third book was not that great in my opinion. I ended up rating it 3 stars. I read this book because it fulfills the challenge of a badass main character as well as another challenge to read a sci-fi book, but I've been meaning to read it anyway because I wanted to see the conclusion of the trilogy to see if there would be anything new that would happen from it. And the answer is no, there was nothing new. I won't go into any spoilers, but there are conflicts that happen throughout the first and second book that just gets repeated again in the third book. They are constantly sacrificing themselves to save the other, or they're constantly being separated. And it's just like the same kind of bullshit, and it gets very old very quickly. There's also this one particular conflict that happens in this book where there's kind of like a misunderstanding between the two of them in the way that the main female character communicated something to the other dude. And I found it to be weird that there was that miscommunication when they have been on the same page forever since the first 2 books. So it really felt like unnecessary to have this book exist in the first place. I wish it was a duology instead because the first 2 books, like, they are pretty fucking solid. There's no need for this one. I think that if you're gonna write an unnecessary third book, the least that you could do is just have like a bunch of fluffy moments. But we didn't get that. I felt like we just got the same conflicts and drawn out world building or whatever. Really, we're not fucking here for the world building or the conflicts. We're here for the fucking couple, and we didn't get any cute or tender moments, barely at all. So unfortunately, I didn't really like this third book, and I rated it 3 stars. That being said, I still really enjoyed the first 2 books, and I would still recommend them if you're looking for a very light sci-fi book and if you're looking for a cute, fluffy couple. After that, the next book that I read is Wa, The Essence of Japanese Design. This fulfills the prompt of reading a book that is in a different format from what you usually read, because if you look through the pages, it is mostly pictures. So this is a design book that has been on my TBR, but I felt like it was very fitting to read it during the Biblio games because when you're getting points from the number of pages that you read, it's very fucking easy to read a picture book. So that is what I did. Unfortunately, I ended up rating the book 2 stars. The main thing that I did not like about this book is the writing. So this is written by 2 authors, and in between the pictures, there are some sections where they're just essays that are leading up to the type of section that you're reading, because this is organized based on different materials. The different materials are wood and fabrics and metal and glass and all that kind of good stuff. So the organization was interesting and I like that, but the writing itself, I really did not like. I felt like it was a very dense, complicated textbook rather than a book that speaks to you like a human. And I feel like when you consider the principles of Japanese design, that is not quite congruent with what you're trying to aim for. In the other design books I've read, the writing is a lot more palatable and it talks to you like another human being so that you can actually understand and appreciate the designs. But for this, I felt like it was a lot of unnecessarily complicated writing. And I think that would alienate people from appreciating the designs and not fully understanding the designs. Another thing that was unnecessarily complicated was the construction of the book itself. It is 2 pages that are stuck together per page in order to create, I guess, like a newspaper kind of look to it. But I felt like it was unnecessary and it made the book a lot heavier than it should be. The construction of it with these double pages are just a choice that I don't think was necessarily wise. There is some interesting content to see if you are into interior design or material design. For example, there are these chairs that are constructed from paper, and it's really cool to see the very intricate designs that were put into there. Even though the content is impressive, I am rating it 2 stars because I'm not giving credit to 2 white authors for the work of Japanese designers. I'm more so evaluating based on how do these 2 white authors construct the book together and how do they write about the designs. And based on those 2 things, it was not that great. And then the next book that I read after that is an Enchantment of Ravens, which I actually forgot to bring with me. I'm packing it in my suitcase because I'm planning on giving it to Chanel. That book was originally given to me by Elias because he has an arc of the book and he had nothing to do with it, so he just gave it away. And he said, you can do whatever you want with it. I don't care. You can just donate it to the library for all I care. But I am gonna give it to Chanel so that I can pass along the cute, fluffy story. This is a fantasy story that I am finding also fulfills the challenge of reading a book with a satisfying ending. This is a book about a girl who works as a painter for a very dangerous types of clients, which are fairies. And I am someone who is very new to fairies, but I am finding that I learned so much more about fairies in this book than A Court of Thorns and Roses. All I knew when I read ACOTAR was that fairies apparently have big dicks. But in this book, apparently there is so much more depth to them beyond their dick. Fairies are immortal creatures who are able to glamour themselves to look like humans, but exceptionally beautiful humans, and they're known to being very sinister and kind of trick you to do something for their own gain. But there are a few interesting setbacks with them, like the fact that they cannot lie. They also are not able to have the ability of human craft. They can't bake bread, they can't sew, they can't paint, they can't write. They can't just do like basic human stuff that we normally do, because if they do it, then they vanish to dust or some shit like that. So human craft is something that they envy. The main character has one of those human crafts, which is to paint very beautifully. And the story begins with her finding out that her next client is a fairy prince from the Autumn Lands. So they spend some time together and she becomes infatuated with him because he's so handsome and he just, he has big dick energy. That's probably what it is. They got a cute little relationship going on, but when she makes her painting, he's in a rush, so he doesn't have time to see her painting, so she had to like package it up and then send it to Autumn Lands. She thinks she's never gonna see him again, but then he comes back to her, but this time he's fucking pissed because he's like, dude, what the fuck did you do? You painted me and you made me look like a pussy in front of everybody. And the reason why I say that is because she ended up painting sorrow in his eyes. She was able to see in his eyes that he was a sad little bitch, and so she painted it in her drawing, and then when it was revealed to the Autumn courts, people were aghast that this fairy prince was a fucking pussy all along. And so he is mortified that she humiliated him like that, even though it was accidental on her part. And so he ends up fucking snatching her from the mortal world and dragging her to the fairy lands where she can be tried at court. I know what you're thinking. You're like, isn't this the same plot as A Court of Thorns and Roses, where like a painter chick gets swept away by a fairy prince? Technically, yes, but other than that, they are 2 completely different books. And the reason why they are 2 completely different books is that I rated A Court of Thorns and Roses 2 stars, and I rated An Enchantment of Ravens 5 stars. Yes, that's right, I rated a fairy book 5 stars. And a lot of people were shocked by this when they found out, not only because I don't typically rate books 5 stars, but also because I don't really care for fairies, and a lot of people in general were very underwhelmed by An Enchantment of Ravens. I think I saw Hannah from A Clockwork Reader put that book as one of her worst disappointing books of 2017 or 2018 or whenever the fuck this was published. Like, a lot of people didn't think the book was that special. But here's the thing. If you rate A Court of Thorns and Roses anything higher than 2 stars, but you rate Enchantment of Ravens lower than that, don't even fucking talk to me, because we are clearly on a different wavelength from here. That being said, the reason why I rated An Enchantment of Ravens 5 stars is because I came into this book just expecting a light, fluffy story. And that's exactly what I got. A light, fluffy story. Because that was what the author intended to make. She wasn't trying to like reinvent the wheel or do some epic story. She just wanted to do a very simple, straightforward, standalone fairy tale. And she did that, in my opinion, really well. I thought it was very charming. I thought it was like the book version of comfort food. And I think that when you read a book with some intention to get something out of it, and when the author writes a book with that same intention, and then you get that intention fulfilled, why else wouldn't you rate it 5 stars? Basically, what I'm trying to say is I rated this book 5 stars because it's fucking cute, okay? So sue me. I thought that the writing was very lovely and lush. I thought that the characters were super soft, and I thought that the romance was fucking cute and fluffy. So I don't give a shit. I'm rating it 5 stars anyway. To get more into detail, I really liked the protagonist. I thought that she was very down to earth and practical and like genuinely like a normal girl. Like I feel like when you read YA books, authors try to make the main character like some sort of way where they try too hard for her to be like not like other girls, where she's either very weak or she's very badass, and just very extremes on both sides of the spectrum. And what I liked about An Enchantment of Ravens was that the main girl was just fucking chill. Like that's it. She was just fucking chill. All she cared about was just painting her little paintings and bargaining to get eggs. She just wants some fucking eggs for her farm. Like that's it. She is a simple hoe, okay? A simple hoe. And as a simple hoe myself, I fucking appreciate that. I also thought that the love interest with the fairy prince was endearing. He was basically a petulant child, but it was never like annoying or anything. And all the characters were just very low-key and soft, and I really liked that. It's a very quiet book, and I think it's very understated. The writing is lovely and atmospheric. It's basically like if you condensed the season of autumn into one book, that is basically the prose in a nutshell. So it's like a soft little nap that you can indulge yourself in. It's not trying to be like a drawn out 5-book series or anything fucking crazy like that. It's just a simple, nice, sweet love story. And that's it. And I fuck with that. My only criticism is that I needed more fluff. Give me the fluff. There were so many opportunities for this book to be even fucking fluffier and disgustingly sweet, and I feel like those opportunities were not seized enough. Like for example, there's this one scene where they end up sleeping together, but it's not like sexual or anything. He's just checking up on her to make sure that she's okay, but then he ended up having to sleep with her because they hear like other people outside the room and they don't want it to be seen that they're together because it's forbidden for humans and fairies to fall in love. So they can't show that they are actually genuinely attached to each other. That's another fucking cliche that I was so fucking into. They shared the same bed, nothing crazy happened, and that's fine. It was just like a cute little moment, but that was it. Like there was no other description for what happens when they share the bed, you know? Like they just fucking went to sleep, lights out, and then it cut to the next day where they were in the fucking courts. And like, you didn't even show the scene where they wake up together? Come on, dude. Come on, Margaret Rogerson. I know this bitch is capable of giving me sickeningly sweet fluff that makes my teeth rot. Like, I know she has it in her, okay? And I'm not saying that I need like sexy scenes like Avatar or anything, because that's not what this book is about. I'm just saying that I know this book is capable of just a little bit more. Like, I feel like just the tip, you know, just, I need just the tip that I know you can provide. I know you can provide, dude. There's like these scenes where the main character ends up accidentally naked a couple of times because she would transform into an animal and then she would transform back to a human. So when that happens, you don't have your clothes, and then she's like, oh my God, don't look. And then he has to look away so that she can like, you know, change in privacy. You're fucking telling me that you put in all those pointless naked scenes together and nothing happens after that? Like, again, I'm not fucking saying that there needs to be sex or anything. I'm just saying we could have had more fluff. That's what I want. I want more fluff. I want diabetes. If you're gonna write a fluffy book, you might as well go all the way. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be so sickeningly sweet that I get diabetes from it. Like, my teeth will just fall out because it's rotting from all the sugar. That's what I want. That's my only critique about the book. But other than that, I thought it was super fucking cute, and I rated 5 stars, and I don't give a shit. And then the last book that I read is a nonfiction book that I read for the Buzzwordathon that was hosted by Chanel and Books and Lala. For the buzzword that you are supposed to read for that week, it is any title with the word you in it. So I picked How to Date Men When You Hate Men. This has been on my TBR for a while, so I figured it was a good excuse to pick it up. And I ended up failing the Buzzwordathon because this book put me in a reading slump. You would think that based on the title, I would love it. And I was very optimistic in the beginning because it had a lot of promise. She has a very light writing style where she balances very flippant humor with deeper topics, like questioning how can we navigate romantic relationships and being attracted to a group of people that have systemic power over us. And so I felt like this was right up my alley because I feel like that's how I process things as well. Unfortunately, what I come to find is that this book really ain't shit. The intro had these questions about how we can be attracted to our own oppressors and how we can navigate that. So I assumed for the rest of the book that it would have followed up with it and provided some answers to that or provided some more insightful thoughts to it. But what I've come to find is that the rest of the book is just stupid bullshit of this author's love life. The whole book is literally just very neurotic ramblings of this woman who seems very dead set, boxing herself in a very stereotypical role of a single woman in New York City. Like, it was as if she based her entire persona of a leading woman in a rom-com, which is not a surprise because she constantly references rom-coms throughout the book and she talks about how she grew up with them. And again, I think that this could have been an opportunity to talk about how women get socialized into believing their lives need to go a certain way when they are exposed to rom-coms and media and all of that kind of jazz. But instead, we just get very stupid, vapid ramblings. First red flags that I got was actually from when she had this section that was talking about how fun it is to have multiple crushes. And her argument for this is that when you have multiple crushes, you are able to kind of figure out what your taste in boys are and kind of define your character from there. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can see that because when you go through guys, it's kind of like a character builder for you where you know what you deserve and what you don't or whatever. But here was the red fucking flag. She says, in a moment of desperation in spring 2016, to prove to myself that I did know hot men, I made a very simple spreadsheet of men and my status with them. And she talks about the spreadsheet that she made with all of her crushes, and she had a separate column that lists out status with those crushes. And it says stuff like, doesn't want to hang, question mark, question mark, question mark, have never met this person, 10-year plan, explicitly doesn't like me. When I first read it, I was like, I don't know about this girl. Like, yeah, I can understand why it's fun to indulge in frivolous crushes, but when you're making like a whole fucking spreadsheet about them, maybe you should reevaluate your priorities, or at the very least, question why you are so fucking thirsty for men. Like, that's what I assumed this book was about based on the introduction. Another red flag was she has a section called I Know It When I See It, where she talks about how she is able to tell when men are into her and the signs of knowing when a guy is into you. She starts off the section by saying, it is very hard to definitively prove that someone was flirting with you. I discovered this after a man who had been flirting with me for 3 months told me that he had never once flirted with me in his whole life, and I had to try to explain to him why I knew he was wrong. And I'm like, bitch, what? A guy tells you that he doesn't like you and you spent the rest of the fucking conversation him telling him why he was wrong? What kind of heterosexual bullshit is this? I swear to God, like, this book is basically straight culture in a nutshell, okay? And as a straight person, this made me extremely ashamed to be straight. Like, it's already fucking embarrassing that I have to deal with men and that I am attracted to them, but this makes me even more ashamed that this fucking woman behaves herself like this and thinks that this is cute or quirky. Because that's the whole thing. You can tell from her writing style and the very flippant way that she has for her persona that she thinks that this is a cute shtick. But it's not. It's fucking pathetic, okay? There's more to life than just liking a guy. There's more to your personality and your humor than just revolving it around quirky, dynamic, dysfunctional relationships. I am extremely disappointed that this title was clickbait because this author does not hate men at all. Like, this was a straight up lie. She does not hate men. She has the opposite problem where she is so obsessed with men that she wrote a whole fucking book about them and goes into detail about how she constantly thinks about whether a guy likes her back or not, or whether she has a chance with this dude. And it's very annoying. It gets very grating because I soon found out that I am pretty sure I would find this author insufferable because it was so painful to get through all the annoying anecdotes and her attempts at being funny. And I think considering that she writes for The Onion and a few other satirical sites, I am pretty sure that maybe in the form of a short article, she can do a bit better. But when you have to read an entire book of her inane writing, it just does not hold up. The jokes get very old. She makes tons of jokes that are digging against Trump. And yeah, I get it. He's like the poster child of a sexist dude, but it just gets so old after a while and it's such an easy target too. She connects the faults of Trump to why dating is so hard. And yes, I'm sure that you can make some kind of sociological connection to why we have elected a sexist president. And I think it is very ironic for her to constantly make a joke against Trump and try to make the connection of Trump to sexism and how dating is hard and the way that we navigate our relationships with men, when really, the majority of white women had voted for Trump. Over 50% of white women had voted for Trump. So it's very ironic that this white woman is criticizing this situation that's happening when the majority of her demographic had voted for him. And I think that just really goes to show that this entire book is white feminism in a nutshell. She uses feminism as a way to cover herself from any criticisms because she will constantly circle back every time she has like a stupid fucking anecdote to talk about how women who talk about relationships or make art about relationships and their feelings about men are seen as trivial or boy crazy or obsessive and vapid. And while I do think that it is true that women tend to be gauged more critically when they talk about relationships or anything in general, that doesn't absolve you from the fact that you wrote a genuinely stupid fucking book. That's like if someone told me that I was fucking cheap and I said, ugh, Asians are always criticized for being cheap. Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm a cheap ass. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's so stupid that she doesn't even reflect on her own self and question why she is so obsessed with men and why she is revolving her whole identity around men. And it's very counterproductive to whatever she tried to do for her introduction and how she titled this book. So all in all, I thought this book was stupid and vapid and has nothing to do with how women are criticized as stupid and vapid. There was a section where she said that she has somehow survived the whole years of her life without therapy. And once I read it, I was like, girl, you fucking need it. So yeah, rated it 1 star. It was the worst book that I've read this whole year. I absolutely hated it. I rated A Court of Thorns and Roses 2 stars, okay? So that means I would rather take every Sarah J. Maas book ever published and condense it into one thick book and shove it up my asshole before I ever read this book again. So those are all of the books I read in June, which brings me to my next point of the books I'll be reading in July. I plan on reading Unwind by Neal Shusterman because that is the next book that we are gonna be reading for PAPERCUT Book Club. There will be a live show on my channel where we talk about the book, and it will be on July 21st, which is a Sunday, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We bumped up the time a little bit to be an hour late. So check your time zone converter to see if you can make it. And I picked this book because it is a dystopian book about a society where abortion is illegal and unwanted children get their organs harvested. And it was kind of like a compromise between the pro-life and pro-choice civil war that happened. I picked this book because I felt like it was very relevant to today, especially with what's going on in US politics. It was also published in the early 2000s, so I would hope that the book is available at most libraries or at least at a cheaper price if you decide to buy it. So hopefully, if you are interested, be sure to check out our live show on Sunday on July 21st. Beyond Unwind, I am also going to try to read the rest of the series for A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm going to read read the second and third book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of whatever the fuck the other one is called. I am going on a plane ride to Texas, so I'm hoping that I can just get it out of my system, you know, just get it out of the way, because I don't want it hanging over me anymore. I will try to vlog my experiences reading the book while I am traveling in Texas as well. And then beyond that, I will try to cleanse my palate with a few other nonfiction books like the Harvard Business Review books and another book that I've been meaning to read called Making Time. Overall, I do think there will be enough of a balance, hopefully, for July. I also plan on reading for the Reading Rush that is hosted by Ariel, which is a week-long readathon, and I will talk more about it in a future video where I talk about my TBRs for upcoming readathons. That is about it that I have. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to unsubscribe, and goodbye.
I don't wanna be sad forever. I don't wanna be sad no more. I don't wanna wake up and wonder, what the hell am I doing this for? I don't wanna be medicated. I don't wanna go through that war. I don't wanna be sad.